get started. So they called me and asked me to do this, and I thought, what have I been working on? What do I want to learn, right? I want to learn more about the caudal part of the foot and how to fit it. I'm really working on that. I've been shoeing horses for almost 29 years. I've never shot a horse perfectly in my life. Has anybody? I mean, it's my goal, you know, and I always said that if I ever do it, you guys are going to know it because I'm going to buy a Super Bowl. I'm not going to put it on Facebook. I'm going to help everything I have. How about now? Is that better? Better, yeah. Okay, sorry. So I thought, man, I'm going to learn all this great stuff, and I'm a basics guy. And I always go back to the basics, and I started looking into all this stuff, and I thought, there we go. I go back to the basics every time I think about shoeing any kind of horse. I shoe a lot of lame horses because I work at a couple veterinarian clinics, I work at the university. But it's all about basics. I see a lot of horses that they're sore in the back part of the foot. Why? You know, there's a lot of reasons why, because there's a lot of anatomy back there. You know, there's more of it. Cut the foot. I think it's that simple. So this is a picture I always come. These are the kind of places I shoe horses at. They're pretty nice places. But also, these are the kind of places I shoe horses at. And more of these than the first slide. But I always try to take my basics and my approach the same, if possible. You know, you can see this. I live in, and when I assess a clinician, I always want to know where they're from. I'm from East Central Illinois, and it is wet 9 months out of the year, and it's dry the rest of the 3 months out of the year. And it's been really, really dry. And I think you have to take that into consideration on how you shoe horses, and you're going to see that in some of my slides here of how I shoe horses. And it's because I think it's where I live, I can shoe horses like this and get away with it. You know, it's wet, wet, wet. It's like when you go to Florida, but they're there 12 months a year. It's 9 months a year where I live. So my feet change drastically those 9 months, and then those 3 months they get really tight, really hard, and you know, they're easier to control for me then. But then when it gets wet again, it gets worse. So this is a cool place to shoe horses. This is downtown Cumarao, Columbia. And I was there in December, and we were in this, just around this corner, having breakfast. And we hear this horse walk up. We had no clue that this guy was getting ready to shoe this horse. But I thought that was just a neat picture of that. And then right downtown, somebody brought that horse through these pavilions, tied him up to that post, and the guy came out and started shooting. It was pretty neat. So what's our number one responsibility as farriers? And to me, it's as simple as we have to protect the hoof capsule. We have to keep the hoof capsule intact. A lot of people talk about, oh, I shoe the whole horse. I don't even know what that means. I'm sorry, maybe I'm just not smart enough, but I shoe the whole horse. I have no idea what that means, because if I don't protect my hoof capsule, I can't affect anything above it, in my mind. So I think our number one responsibility is to protect our hoof capsule. How do we do that? We do that by good trimming. And if we're going to shoe the horse, we have to do it by good fitting. So, I'm here to talk about the back half of the foot, right? But I think the most important thing that protects the back half of the foot is that we fit the toe. I'm a big believer in fitting the toe. I rarely back shoes up. I used to back shoes up a lot. If I can get a proper trim, dress the foot properly, get a nice tight hoof capsule, and fit the toe, my heels either recover if it's a horse that has bad heels, or stay nice and strong. That's just for me. And I really, really believe this. And I tried a million things for a lot of time. So I want to fit the toe. I want to fit the toe to the white line. I mean, this is just basics again. I want to fit the toe to the white line. That's coffin bone shape, and fit it to the coronary band behind the widest point of the foot. So what I think happens, do we have a pointer?
Yeah, works with my computer.
Oh boy, now he's giving me a hard time. I procrastinated a little bit, so I don't have the proper computer here. But my belief is this simple. If you take the toe away, you're taking the strongest part of the foot away. And then your weight goes on the heels. And if you do this up on the top left-hand corner, I see this a lot. Especially if it's in a wet environment. I see this on the right-hand side. These heels just crumble away. And I think this is what causes it. I think when we set shoes back to try to gain breakover or whatever we talk about, I think it hurts me, especially where I live when it's wet. So I want to fit the toe to protect the back part of my foot. Here's another example. I see a lot of this. You see the dorsal wall starting to bulge a little bit. The shoe's probably not quite fitting the heels. This horse has actually been shot at 4 weeks. This horse came from Florida. It was a horse that came to Chicago, 4-week shot. I mean, it looks to me like he's 12 weeks out. But I see a lot of this. I don't know if you guys do. I see a ton of them. And then I see this again. I see this crumbling of the heels right at the bars and right behind the quarter. There's another thing. You see this, where I have the arrow up there, I don't know if you can see that very well, but I also see that separation in the heel as well. That shoe was actually off the same horse I just showed you. That's the same horse. So here's another example. It just makes the heel weak, in my opinion. And I don't want to sit here and focus on it, but there is a warning here. There's a subliminal messaging in this talk. And it's all about fitting the toe. So I think as Farriers, what we read, what we study, and the textbooks we read, the Farrier textbooks and that, this is what we look at when we look at the foot a lot of times, the internal part of the foot. And there's a way, way more to it than this, and I learned that just putting this presentation together. Here's the back half of the foot on that thing. You know, you've got your digital cushion, your navicular bone, your deep flexor tendon, part of your coffin bone. The wing's not even shown in here, but the way I learned off these kind of images. You know, that's the back part of the foot. That's what we're going to see. But mostly, there's way more stuff in there than this.
All right.
So let's take a look at it. So this is actually a horse I worked on, and I just found the picture to say, let's open it up and take a look. That mare didn't make it, obviously. So when we look at the internal part of the foot, we've got to remember all these things instead of that sagittal picture that we see all the time. So we got to think about our lateral cartilage. This one has a window cut out of it. These photos were from John Marie Denwall. I would love to be able to do this like he can, and I've tried a bunch, but it takes a lifetime to learn how to dissect a foot like this. I can't do it. I've tried and tried and tried. So I asked him permission to use these pictures, and he said yes. So We got to think about our lateral cartilages. We got to think about our proximal interphalangeal joint, our coffin bone, or our coffin joint, sorry, our deep flexor tendon, our collateral ligaments in the coffin joint, chondrocoronal ligaments. We've got P2, P3, and the distal sesamoid bone. And this doesn't touch everything that's in there. There's so much more. Like this picture, we got our distal annular ligament, the digital cushion, chondrocoronal ligament right here. Those things get sore for multiple reasons. And how do we tell, you know? What do we say? Oh, my horse is navicular, he's walking on his toe, or he's pointing his foot out. You know, it's just such a broad term, and I think over the past 20 years we've realized this, right? I used to have a vet that I worked with, and he was a great guy. But he would always prescribe egg bar with a wedge pad. Horse had regular. We say if that horse had a snotty nose, that's what he got, egg bar and wedge pad. But I think we're finding out over a lot more research, a lot more technology, MRIs. People are able to read MRIs much better, and we can find out and pinpoint where these soft tissue injuries are in the back part of the foot. So this is just more anatomy, you know. We've got all this stuff that we have to think about, and when we get prescription to shoe it, how do we know what we're shoeing? You know, how do we know? I mean, and still today, when you look at an MRI, everything just lights up like a Christmas tree. So then you have this big old report from the veterinarian of everything that's wrong. So where do you start? I think you go back to the basics. You know, nice good fit, nice good trim if you can. So this anatomy, you know, look at the deep flexor tendon. I think I see a lot of adhesions with the deep flexor tendon. And I think, you know, they're to the navicular bone, but they're also a little bit higher up than they be in that sagittal ridge of P3. I don't know. I think some of the MRIs that we did showing us. How can we fix that? I don't know. I don't know if we can fix any of it. I don't think we can keep them comfortable. But I don't think we can fix it. You know, we got to talk about the impart ligament, chondrosesamoidian ligaments, flexor surface of P3, semilunar line, semilunar crest. All those areas are affected. But then again, I think we always just go back to this picture, or I do anyway, or I talk to people, and you know, this is what we see. We see this sagittal view of the horse's foot, and we don't think about everything else. And when I say that, I'm talking about me and the people I teach and the textbooks we read and that sort of thing. The other things we got to think about is the frog, the sensitive frog, the digital cushion. I see a lot of what I call displaced digital cushion. And we see a lot of, I'm going to show it in a minute, negative or zero palmar plantar ankles. What comes first? You know, does the bulbs of the heels and the digital cushion displace and the coffin bone drops? Or are they born that way? A lot of horses I see that we take radiographs of have a zero palmar or plantar angle, and they're perfectly fine. You know, I want to say 10 years ago when we saw that, everyone panicked. You know, what do we got to do? We got to wedge them up. I don't think that worked. It didn't work for me when I wedged them up. It always made them worse. And then I thought, well, I'll wedge them up because I'll wedge them up with a frog support system, whether it's a part bar or a frog support pad or a pour in or whatever. They would do great for about 2 shoeings and come back lame. And I think that a lot of those horses have those adhesions to with the deep flexor tendon and the navicular bone and made them sore. So then, not only do we have all that soft tissue, and I didn't even hit the surface on it, we've got the vascular system we have to think about. And the guy that works with me the most, Diego Almeida, he talks about the corpuscle cells, and how these cells have such, have nerve endings in them, and that's why they're so sore. That's why horses get so sore. The corpuscle cells, there's so many of them in the back part of the foot. With the vascular system, this is arteriogram. This is only half of one. When we think about, we're supposed to be protecting all that, along with all the veins and this venogram. So I want to give credit to this. Anybody have this book? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people in here have this book. This is an awesome book. If you don't have it, go get it. I had the opportunity to spend a little time with Jean-Marie Denois, and it was enlightening. And if you ever get a chance, do it, because he's an excellent teacher and fun guy to be around, and you can learn a lot from him.
It's a good video out too, showing strain and various different things on the foot moves.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So this is just a video I'll play a few times, and I stole it from YouTube, just to see the impact that the back half of the foot has upon landing. Tom? There you go. I'm sorry.
No impact at all?
None. If they don't hit the ground, it doesn't hurt. That was my subliminal message. Sorry, guys.
As I say, if I could operate a computer, I'd have been a veterinarian.
If I could operate a computer, I'd probably be working in an office. So here's a great example. Laurie McBride shot this horse. I don't know what it is. Laurie's here. How long ago?
About 2 years ago.
2 years ago. And you can look at this horse and look at the photo on the left and see how weak that heel is. He's long-toed, low-heeled. He's not fixable. We're going to wedge him up. We're going to do anything. She gradually trimmed him properly, fit his toe, fit his quarters, fit his heel. That's the same foot, even though this photo is a little darker. That's what it ended up being. How long did that take, Lori?
About like 9 months.
About 8 or 9 months. That's unbelievable. I mean, this is truth right there. It's awesome. So when we see these horses, the first thing I do is balance the frog. When I talk about balancing frogs, and people look at me like I'm crazy. And I think that, and I've read a lot of literature that says you should never touch the frog. Where I live, we have to touch the frog. Because if you can see this is just a minor part of it, but see where that frog's starting to grow over and cover up the commissure of the frog? This is what we get if we don't clean them out. We get a lot of bacteria and basically horse crap in there. I think they need to be cleaned. I think they need to be cleaned out and balanced. with using conservative. You have to be conservative. So I like to talk about balancing the frog in a way that it matches the dermal frog, where it's nice and round, and not real sharp edges. Like I said, we're trying to be very conservative. So I've been trying to get a video of ground force reaction, or whatever you want to call it, on frogs. But taking a nice frog, trimming it both these ways. Does this make sense to you guys? You see where these are real
Even sharp
pointed?
edges versus rounded edges to the front.
Sharp edges versus nice rounded edges looking like a dermal frog. If you take a piece of plexiglass and you trim your frog like this, that's why I don't use a real big belly knife to trim my frog, because I make these cuts that have this radius in it, and then it becomes sharp. And where it splits, you can see where the impact comes in. It splits right at the central sulcus of the frog. I've tried to video that, and I can't get it to where it looks good with the piece of plexiglass just pushing. If you make it nice like a dermal frog, the expansion of the frog goes way up inside the tonsure. And my frogs started getting healthier and healthier and healthier when I started to so-called balance them and make them look like the dermal frog. And then my heels were healthier. My bars were healthier. So I used to just take my knife, a big belly loop knife, and cut through those frogs, make them look pretty, because that's what I thought everybody wanted to see. You know, even especially with at a contest or certification or something like that, and I would get unhealthy frogs. Also, when we balance the frog, if you look at this photo, can you guys see that line on this right side where it's darker?
Yep.
That line indicated to the guy that shot this horse, who was one of my apprentices, that that was the center of the frog. And if you look at the center of his toe, of his shoe, it's lined up with that line, but that's not the center of his frog. The center of his frog is slightly over here, and I've got another slide. And if you look at the shoe, it's racked this way. It's a little long on this side, and it misses the heel on this side. But his eye, because he just took his knife, put that line in there, and I'm not picking on him, but this horse lost his shoe every other day. I'd send him back out there and put it on. Well, his clips were burnt in, so he matched up his clips, knocked the shoe on. I said, man, it's tight anyway, you know. It's tight enough to lose shoes. Plus, he missed that, and he kept losing shoes, and I went out with him, and luckily, I noticed it. But that's what happened. There's the center of his frog. There's the center of his shoe. We just took the shoe, reheated it, burned it back, and that horse didn't lose his shoe for 4 or 5 weeks until we reset. Well, he never lost his shoe again. But that's because he didn't balance his frog, because his eye told him that that line here on the right, or sorry, on the left, was the line that was the center of his foot. But there's a subliminal message here. I found out that's not illegal too, but I studied it. I looked it up. So the next thing I try to do is go to my bars. And I just ran through this horse the other day and noticed that this bar was very, very crooked. And I just knifed it off just to show it that it gave a good picture. I'm not finished with my frog. I'm not finished with anything, but I did that, took a picture of it to show how weak this quarter is right here. And I think the bars need to be as straight as possible. We're not always going to get perfectly straight bars. I don't believe in gutting them out, and I don't believe in laying them over. You see a lot of pictures, and I have some. Go forward. Like this picture right here on the left. If I did that where I lived, where it was wet, that horse would be so sore or either abscess that I'd be fired from every client. I see that, and I think these pictures come from very dry climates and they get away with it. And that's fine, I don't have a problem with that. They want to leave their bars folded over and they don't have a problem, but I do. So I like to get them nice and straight. One of the guys that helped me a lot said the bars should be like a truss in your house. And that always makes sense to me. Now here's one that baffles me. This is a horse that we do, I have other pictures of it, that has had sheared heels for at least 8 years since I've seen this horse. It's like the fastest horse in Illinois. She won $120,000 off last year. Oh, you know, I don't know if that's true. That's what they tell you anyway. But look at the bar on this horse. It's folded over a bit. And it looks like where my thumb is, that's where the seat of the corn is. But his heel comes all the way back here. And the reason why I put this picture up is because I need help with this horse. I can't figure him out. I really think this horse has an autoimmune deficiency. Because all 4 of his feet have big sheared heels. And they'll come back no matter the weather, dry season, wet season, they'll be sheared. And sometimes, have you ever seen them where their bolts just overlap each other? Does anybody have any suggestions for that?
This is a racehorse?
This is a barrel horse.
From the apex of the bars there, drop your heel, just rest your heel down like you're floating. Just take it back till it reaches the widest point of the front. It'll create a little bit of a space between your heel and your shoe, but it'll allow it to drop down. It'll help the sheared heel, so you see a nicer foot next time.
Well, I've actually done, I have hard bars on this horse.
Well, you don't need the hard part. Just leave it just the way it is. The steel shoe will hold on.
Okay, thank you. Because I put this picture on here for that reason, just to try to get some advice.
Well, if it doesn't work, you didn't hear it from me.
It's not your fault. I mean, I've tried everything. It keeps winning, but it just drives me crazy because this horse should have, I told her 5 years ago, sell this thing now. And it keeps winning and winning and winning. And she won't sell it, of course, and it's going to go cripple, and that's going to be my fault.
Can I ask you a question? Did you shoot quite a few barrel horses?
No. Only if they're lame.
My question was is if you notice a difference in feet between which barrel they run to first.
So
the barrel racer does the clover leaf, so he's on one lead more than the other, depending on which barrel they do first.
do one left and 2 right, or 1 right and 2 left? This horse goes to the right first, I know that. So 2 left-hand turns. So 2 left-hand turns. This is on all 4 feet. This horse. Did everybody hear the question? They want to know which way the horse went? But I do have one barrel trainer that I do shoot for regularly, and his right rear foot, every one of his heels is contracted. Lateral heel is contracted on the right rear foot. And he runs them every separate way, you know, right to left or left to right. I don't get it. Somebody can help me with that.
My guess on that one is when he takes off. He probably digs in really hard.
I don't know. But anyway, I see this. This is a petrified foot, basically. It's been laying around the vet clinic forever. But that bar is straight. So I think we have to have straight bars. I just think we have to mimic what's inside the hoof capsule. That's what works for me. So there's that picture again, right? I didn't put anything in here about trimming soles because I don't trim much sole. We brush them out and most of it falls out. And if I do, it's very, very little. So I don't trim a whole lot of sole, but I do straighten the bars. you know, and I do fit them. So when I go to fit these horses in the quarters and heels, and that's what we're here to talk about, this is what I'm really trying to work on, is to get around the back part of the foot. And not give them too much leverage. And I see a lot of this because the quarters missed. And I got a few slides here that shows the quarters missed, the heel drops, and it's just going away and it dives in. I wouldn't say it's totally contracted, but the heel comes in. And when you can take and fit the quarter correctly, the heel comes back. It takes a while. It takes a long while. If the digital cushion and the bulbs are displaced, I don't know if you can ever get them back.
Are you saying because the quarters fit too tight there?
It's fit
and the
too
shoe's
tight.
hanging over?
Yeah,
The
you can
hook hanging over?
see where it's hanging over right
Yeah.
there. This horse wasn't shod that. According to the owner, it wasn't shod very, you know, like 4 or 5 weeks. So here's another picture of it where it's missed. I see this a lot. I see this a lot of the horses that I have a regular book of clients, and used to have a lot more before I worked for the university. So I see horses that I don't see regularly. Does that make sense? I see a lot of horses come in, and I'm sure a lot of you guys work like that. You might only see them once or twice. People with a regular book of horses see the same horses over.
Steve, you lost your mic.
How about now? Nope.
Battery's not going out.
Where's Tom?
Oh, he's outside.
This one working? He's smoking. How about that? That better? So anyway, I get to see a lot of horses like this, and our goal is not to keep them. Our goal is to send them back to their regular farrier. So I don't have, like, I pulled this shoe off, I fit it, and you know, this is what happened. I apologize for that, but that's just the way. That's just the way our practice runs. So, but I do see a lot of this. And here's a couple other examples. I think it's too tight at the toe, quarter, and then it's big at the heel. And this one over here, you can see it's missed. This is a reining horse, so he's got a lot of length, but he's missed. This horse was shot about 3 or 4 weeks there too. He's a little bit coon-footed. I think they were trying to get him back to there, but missed a quarter, and that's where his heel stayed. So this is, to me, a friend of mine says, one day we were shoeing horses, and he said, "You need to start standing these horses in their shoes, not on." And that was a huge light bulb that went off in my head. Put them in them, not on them. Because when you put them on them, and when it's wet, like I live, it just grows over. 2 or 3 weeks, they're grown over, start crushing their heels. This is what happens. These are some examples I think are pretty good fits. These are horses I shot. There's some things I would change. Like I said, I never shot one perfectly yet. And I was happy enough with these to put them on my slides. You know, I don't like that middle nail. I'm a little bit tight behind my clip on this. That clip isn't a perfect fit that I, but anyway, he's standing in his shoes. Both of these horses are standing in their shoes and not on them. And I think that's good, healthy basics. So we see this slide, and I see this a lot. I do this a lot. I don't put them on a lot. I put this one on purpose, just to take this picture. And I clinched it and everything. But what happens is I see a lot of people, they're scared to death, especially our students and our apprentices, to hit that clip. So they take and they miss it. Their nail's too low. They're too full, that's why their nail's too low. And then they get too tight in the back, further back by the heel, and that horse starts to lose his strength in his heel.
By they're afraid to hit that clip, you mean in a pre-clipped shoe. You
Yeah.
don't fit them and then nail it on them.
Any clip shoe,
Well, yeah, once you
you know,
nail it on.
especially if they pull it themselves, because they just pulled it and they don't want to mess it up. So, I think what people do, they get to that clip, they miss it, so they don't bend their clip or mess it up. Their shoe pops up, they don't fit it, and they live with that. Usually they grind it off. What I see. And grinding is not fitting. So here's a burn of one. Just an example, you can see where the burn missed right behind the clip, and then it got tight down by the heel. There's just another example. Low nail, missed the fit, clip's not in the wall. It'll weaken up right there every time. So this is just an example. Don't be afraid to hit your clip. Because if your clip's pitched properly and set properly first and pitched properly, you're not going to mess it up. If your body's in the right position at the anvil and your feet are in the right spot, just like it's not even there, then we can fit them easier. Maybe I'm the only one, but I see this happen a lot. We have a lot of students, and every one of them does it. Until we say, don't be afraid to hit it. So we'll talk about heel length. I'm not big on putting a bunch of steel out there. I don't understand why. I think sometimes we say it's for support. I had a girl tell me how to shoe a horse. She brought some shoes, pre-shaped shoes to me not too long ago, and she said, can you put these on my horse? They're pre-shaped, that's what he wears. One side was a 3 and the other side was about a 2. Right? Well, for me, I just use a 3 and a 2. Or if I build them, I use less steel, whatever. And she gave me these shoes, and I gave them to the guy that was helping me, and I said, here, go grind these down. No, they got to go on there. This is a vet student, 4th year vet student. And she said, I said, why do you want these shoes on? They're too long. Well, he won't pull them. I said, I don't care if he pulls them or not. But I said, it's too much leverage. I really think length is leverage. She said, well, it's for support. And I said, what are you supporting? And this is a 4th year vet student. She couldn't answer the question. I no longer shoot for her because of this. And it just, I used to use that excuse, yeah. Why is the toe hanging over the shoe? Well, that's for brake over. Why is it heel so long? Well, he needs the support. That was a lame excuse. So we always think about leverage at the toe, leverage at the toe. Why, if it's too far forward, is it leverage, but it's not too far. If it's too far back, why is it support and not leverage? I quit fitting them so long, and my heels, my back half of the foot are healthy. This is an extreme picture. That's a $400 shoe job. See it all the time. That lady paid $400 to get that horse shot. It's a dressage horse. Now, I'm not here to bash people because I've done that, you know. I think I can say it because I've done stuff like that. And that was support because I was too lazy to either cut this off or use the right size shoe. And this little trailer, if you look at that heel ball, I think it's starting to displace a little bit. Probably because of leverage. It's starting to come back. And then that's, you know, when you can go and pinch them and grab them, then it's too late usually. You can also be too short, which we all do. That's a horse we shot at the vet clinic about 3 months ago. This is extremely short. This young guy calls me, and I know him. He's a great kid, and he's wanting to learn a lot. He called me and sent me this picture and said, this horse keeps pulling shoes. And I keep fitting him tighter and tighter and shorter and shorter. And he keeps pulling shoes. What do I do? And I said, well, you're going to have to stop this now. You know, I don't. And then he found out the horse would pull the shoes in the water truck.
So yeah, go check the fence.
Yeah.
I have some extreme pictures in here just to try to make points. But what happens, even if you miss that heel by 1/8 of an inch, do you guys see these quarter cracks? Or not quarter cracks, sorry, these heel cracks? Just to barely miss it. I see these all the time. So you have to be, I'm trying to be more conscious about it. So what do we have in the back part of the foot? You know, we have tendon and ligament pain. How does that happen? Who knows, right? Who knows how it happened to that particular horse we're talking about or whatever. I don't know. Did they step in a hole? Did they strain? Were they fatigued? You know, were they overworked? And we're supposed to fix them. I don't know if we have a magic rasp or a magic shoe to fix that kind of pain. I think it's all time, right? And I'm going to go over some soft tissue injury shoes here in a minute, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We can have bone pain, right? Maybe get bone bruising, joint pain, arthritis in the joints, and tunnel syndrome. You know, it's just pain caused due to compression, basically. And that's where the corpuscle cells come into play, I think, because it really hurts the compression. But not only, and I didn't put everything in here, we're not talking about the papilla or all those soft tissues and those dermal tissues on the bottom of the sole, or the top of the sole, whichever way you want to look at it. So we run into a negative palmar angle. This is the best way I've learned to shoe a negative palmar angle. This is the best I've had success at. It's like kind of a European bar shoe or whatever you want to call it. I've got a wide bar. That one could be a little wider. I've got the toe cut out a bit. That toe could be cut out a little bit more. But I want to basically mechanically wedge them. I want their toe to sink in the ground and their heel to stay on the top of the ground. Because I think a wedge pad, wedge shoe, I've used them, I've tried them, maybe you guys use them and have good success. I don't. I think it changes their posture when we wedge them up. I see a horse. Does anybody here shoe POA ponies? I am so lucky I live in the POA capsule world. And what they do for those ponies is they get a card just because they measure them until they're a certain age. I don't know what that age is.
6.
6. The age is 6, and once they're 6, they get a permanent card that they're measuring. If they're just a little too tall, what do we do to them? We wedge them up. They stick their feet out, they drop their withers, they pass. They put flat shoes back on them, and they go show again. And everybody's happy, but they're still too tall. But I think that's what happens to these horses that we wedge. Not all horses. I think these horses, especially that are long-toed, low-heeled, or most of those horses are long-pastured, right? I hear that's one of the things that drives me crazy is long-toed, low-heeled horses. Well, they're long-pastured, they're supposed to be, right? And we cannot fix these horses by backing their foot. We damage them, or I damage them when I try. I've tried it a million times. They're more desirable to ride. So my answer to that is get your horse shod more often. You bought him. I didn't pick him out for you, and I'm not that. That's the way I feel, right? We're not going to wedge this horse up and crush his heels worse and bulge his, give him a coon foot and bulge his dorsal wall out because it doesn't work. So this is what I do normally. And I've had success, not always, but it works for me. There's just another picture of displaced digital cushion and bulbs. Probably a 0 or negative palmar angle. A corn. You guys see a lot of corns? I see a lot of corns because we see a lot of horses that are shod short where I live. And when I say a lot, I probably see 10 a year. You know, in a house that are really, truly corns. This is more of a bruising. But this is what I do. I put a little onion heel. You can do that with a keg shoe. This is a unilateral onion heel I made for a horse. I don't think it's this horse. Just to protect it for a while. Let them float on top of the brand new gym. it works for me.
So you fit that with it not touching the shoe or not touching the sole?
No,
or
I don't want to touch that sole back. Teratomas, I see a ton of them. When I say a ton of them, I saw like 3 this year, or last year. That's a ton of them. But they do happen in the back part of the foot. Do they cause lameness? I think they do. I think Travis Burns is going to have an answer for us in a year or two because he's doing a study. It might take a little longer. He thinks we should leave them alone at this point. He may change his mind. But occasionally we do see a keratoma in the back part of the foot. Side bones. Do side bones cause lameness?
Yes.
They can.
My stallion just got a broken one a few days ago.
Well, that's a broken one. I think often though, they're indicative of some other problem in the foot. So when we x-ray them, that's what you see, and so you go, that's what's causing the problem.
Exactly. Daryl said that that's, a lot of times, that's what we see and we think that's the cause of the problem. I have a theory about fractured side bones. I don't think they fracture. I think the lateral cartilage starts to calcify distally and then proximally. And my video would have worked, it would kind of show. And I don't think they're fractured. I think they calcify. I think they can fracture, but not very often. I think they're misdiagnosed a lot of times.
He was sound one day and playing the next. And it's completely separate by 6 inches in the
Radiograph. I mean, it's possible, you know. I just, when I see them get them diagnosed as fracture, I think that they're calcifying at the top and bottom, and eventually they're going to be.
that separate them up?
I don't think they separate. I think you still have
Oh, this one's
the
separate.
lateral cartilage.
We've got a big old wide crack on
Do you have the X-rays? I want to look at
it.
it.
Oh my God, I wish I'd taken a picture with my phone.
So side bone, I see side bone. This picture on the right, that worries me more that it causes lameness than a unilateral side bone where they're growing the same. I think side bone's pretty normal. That one wouldn't bother me as bad as either one of these. This one's sharp and it starts to curve, and you'll see it go right into P2, and that one really bothers me. That's just because, most of the time, because of landing, I'm sure.
I've seen some really good studies with a lot of horses and warm bloods and drafts where they started at 2 or 3 years of age and it never does bother them.
Yeah.
Some pretty good impressive stuff.
And as long as they're unilateral, they stay fine. So this is what I do. I just use a side bone shoe. I use a side bone shoe on a lot of horses. I don't wedge the inside of it up much. Like the traditional contest side bone shoe is spiraled, I guess, wedged on the medial side and then beveled on the lateral side. I look at a lot of horses that land very hard on the lateral side. And a lot of them do have the side bones, but this is usually what I use. I don't try to get them to land flat or whatever. I just try to get them to miss that. Just to take a little bit of that compression away. So when they come down, they miss it with the bevel on the left-hand side here. And I would rasp those nail heads on. We also have a lot of collateral ligament tears, or a lot of diagnosed collateral ligament tears. This is an MRI that I stole off the computer at work. I couldn't read it if I tried. But that's what they're telling me, where those little white lines are, there's a collateral ligament tear there. What do we do for that? I just make one side, whichever way the side is, I make it wider, so they float on that side, let them sink in. But when you do these soft tissue shoes or soft tissue injury shoes, you have to find out where this horse lives. They're going to turn him out. I mean, rest is the best thing for soft tissue. I'm not saying they can't hand walk them or let them out a little bit, but they're going to let these horses out. You just wasted your time and their money.
It's also for these kinds of shoes, you need a deformable surface.
Yes.
If they're going to
Yeah,
stand
if they're going to
on
stand on concrete or
a real hard rubber
real hard
pad.
ground, there's no point in it.
So you have them just stall down, keep the horse in the stall for a while, or?
It depends on the severity, and I don't make that diagnosis, or I don't give that, I let the veterinarian do that. Because some of the vets I work with say, put them in a box stall for 30 days and don't let them out, they usually hurt themselves, you know, somewhere else. Or some vets say, you know, you need to get them out, hand walk them a little bit, get them a little exercise, that helps build up the ligament, helps it heal. I don't really know, you know. I'm all for, personally, if it was one of my horses, I would want them to walk them a little bit.
But basically, it has to be in a controlled environment.
Right.
Yep.
Just like a sprained ankle.
So I think we're getting a little crazy with these soft tissue injury, asymmetrical shoes or whatever you call them. But it can't hurt, but you have to know the environment. Here's that horse that I was talking about earlier with that bar that came way back, the heel that came way back. This is on a good day. 6, 5, I think that horse comes in every 5 weeks. That horse could be way worse than this, and then the next time his heels are almost equal. Those horses I usually put some kind of bar shoe on, try to, you know, keep the hoof capsule intact, so they're not rubbing, try to get rid of that bacteria that's in the central sulcus of the foot. I can't deal with this horse. I wish someone else could. He's a pain. See some of this with the back on it? What you do, you just try to patch it up any way you can. So can you guys all read that? Take a moment and read this. This is awesome. I found this in the Amble magazine in 1997. Just last
I
year.
read that.
And there's a lot of truth to that. And that's why I believe in good, solid basics. Because I think a lot of times we're getting a little crazy. And I'm not saying we don't try things to get horses sound that isn't a little bit outside of the box. I'm not saying I don't try that stuff. But I think what happens if we don't fit the toe, we don't fit the quarters, we don't fit the heels, this is what happens. Eventually I shoot some, like I said, I shoot some really backyard horses, which is fine with me. I like it. And I shoot some really high dollar horses too. But the problem I see is when these horses are not fit, especially the high dollar horses, eventually they break. So what do? They call a vet. I go to these barns, and there's always a vet there. And a massage therapist, and a chiropractor, and an acupuncturist, and somebody taking the Magna Wave over them and everything. Wow. You know, and there's 4 different Farriers. It's crazy. But I think this Edwin Kenny hit it right on the head. That's all I got. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Fitting the toe, I'm a firm believer in it. I've worked on with a lot of long-footed horses, but where do you think that comes into play with your laminitic cases and stimulation to growth?
So the question was, is fitting the toe, where does it come in with the laminate cases and
Stimulation of blood flow.
Stimulation of blood flow. I think when horses are laminitic and they founder or sink, I think that determines your blood flow to start with. But I'm going to search for the inside of that white line. That's what I'm going to search for. When I say the white line, not the outside, especially on a laminitic horse, it's going to stretch. And when it stretches, I got to find the inside. That's my point where I want to fit. I want my dorsal wall to be obviously in line with my coffin bone, but I don't back up laminated horses that much. And we work on quite a few. Back up per se. We might chop that much rotated capsule off. But I put them where I think it's supposed to be, you know, right under the hairline, right under the coronary.
And then you leave the integrity of the hoof wall, or Or are you bringing that back? Because it seems like you take away that integrity of the hoof wall, you lose your arch, and that's where you have your malfunction.
That doesn't bother me too much as long as I have the bottom of the foot or the frog supported, because there's no integrity to it anyway, really.
It's already blown apart.
I think I get away with it. It's just like a big old horse that's flared. I take it. I hear a lot of people say, don't take that, we won't have anything nailed to. Well, you don't need hoof balls nailed to, all you need is a white line. And it's already weak, and that's the way I look at that with the founder horse. I take it. I'm not saying I've been 100% successful with it, and I know what you're talking about, and I know your concerns, but it doesn't bother me.
Thank you.
I hope that helps, but, you know, that's just the way I do it. That's all I can say. I used to back them up to the tip of the coffin, or to the apex of the frog, sorry. That was a really bad idea. That's the way I was taught. Yeah.
So with fitting the toe, yeah, but say you take on a horse that the toe has just gotten really drawn out over time, and maybe there's a pathology or they're just a long pastern horse. How are you bringing it back? I mean, you trim it to a point, but you're still looking at it, you got a long toe.
So the question is fitting the toe, if you get one that's comes into you really long and, you know, has some pathology there and it's got a long pastern or whatever, a long toe, I do exactly what Laurie McBride taught me. I go slow and often.
Like every 4 weeks?
Yeah, probably every 3-4 weeks. I go slow and often, and that, it takes a while. But I get along better with that than backing the shoe up, because then I crush my heel. And then I just fight that bulge and the coronary band dropping. Not so much when it's dry. I can get away with that a little bit when it's dry. I can get more aggressive. But I do what Laurie says, because my feet will just eventually come up like that.